Ecuador is a country that is both beautiful and diverse, ranging from low marshland to high forested mountain ranges. At the turn of the century, Ecuador was a country caught up in the gold craze that swept through South America. It wasn't prepared for the sudden wealth and then depression that followed. Power and money were placed in the hands of a select few. The one thing that stood out in contrast to the beauty of the land was the condition of most of its inhabitants. While the scenery portrays the feeling of openness and freedom, the faces of the people depict the strain of years of toil. This is often missed by those in charge of chronicling the life of the Ecuadorians. Government officials, historians, and even the artists portray the Indians as free-spirited, when in fact they were being oppressed at every turn. It was in this setting that Ecuador's greatest living artist was born. Eduardo Kingman is that artist. He has spent his life taking the oppression of his people and documenting it on canvas.
Creo que mi pintura es casi dramática.
I believe my paintings are somewhat dramatic and above all human, striving to be human, but showing dramaticism, anguish, and earnest prayer. I try to capture the essence of our people.
En fin, detalles como esos. Todos los seres humanos tenemos.
All human beings have moments of anguish, sadness, frustration. All of us are very human. We experience hard times in our lives.
It was in Loja, a small town in Ecuador, that Eduardo Kingman was born. Eduardo Kingman's name and his background are as much of a contrast as the land and its people. He was born to an Ecuadorian mother and American father in 1913. The two met when Dr. Edward Kingman came to Ecuador to provide medical services. One of his patients, Rosita Cordova, became his wife. Eduardo's father later returned to the United States, but his family decided to remain in their country. Dr. Kingman provided his family with a large sum of money, but his young wife lost much of it in failed business ventures. It was during his early years that Eduardo learned firsthand about the repression that affected both his people and later his paintings. Kingman's style and subject matter were new to the critics of the day, who in their narrow-mindedness failed to see the real meaning behind Eduardo's work. Critics in later years, however, would comment that Eduardo's work was best able to express the harsh reality of the working class in Ecuador. In 1936, Kingman was awarded Ecuador's highest award for art, the Mariano Aquilero Award for The Coal Man. As with any artist, Kingman has gone through many stages of development.
El proceso es largo. Yo he tenido muchas etapas.
The process is long. I have gone through many stages. I had researched Cubism, Surrealism, but I had to find my own language to express myself and to satisfy myself. This is my language.
Estoy explorando algo más poético, más amable.
I am exploring something more poetic, more likable, as it relates to nature and to human beings, but above all, emphasizing nature and the environment in a more poetic, more peaceful form.
Es que, por lo general, mi obra es dramática.
In general terms, my work is dramatic. A balance must be achieved with a very vivid, very bright color to avoid a brooding sadness. It is necessary for a painter to explore the chromatic ranges and color. It is important to research all the possibilities of color. At the beginning, one is rather timid. One tends to paint with dead and dull colors. But with time, one researches other possibilities with color. Additionally, in the late 50s, I was into abstract painting for about 3 years, but I grew totally frustrated.
Cubism was an artistic development that occurred in Paris in the early 1900s and became a more worldwide movement in 1913, the same year that Kingman was born. The time period, however, is not the only reason why Cubism would appear to be such a path for Kingman. The idea of Cubism is a perfect vehicle for his work as well. Cubism allows Kingman to express the spirit of his subjects while not making him dependent on the forms of nature. Using Cubism, he can show the sometimes harsh realities of the Ecuadorian peasant, but at the same time, he does not allow the abstraction to take away from the human element of his work. He stated in the 1950s his feeling that pure abstraction, abstraction for its own sake, is anti-human, and it could not be his path. It is in this way that Kingman has found a happy medium in his expression of Cubism. It is also Eduardo's use of cubes that makes the ever-present exaggerated hands in his works so distinctive. It is the hands that are the most dominant element in Kingman's paintings. While other artists may concentrate on the face or body as their means of expression, Kingman expresses his feelings and ideas through the hands of his subjects as well. In much of his work, the face of his subject is nearly obstructed from view or even completely covered. And he has dedicated many works to just the hands alone. His utilization of hands as a subject also allows him to further communicate the feelings of his people, and to show the life and work of the Ecuadorian Indian. It could also be said that the hands exist to make a connection. This connection could be between the artist and those who may be viewing his work, or more importantly, the connection made by the hands is between Kingman's subject and something else, such as a connection between a mother and child, or a connection with a feeling or emotion. The hands are also used to convey that feeling or emotion to the artist's critics and public, as well as communicating a situation, idea, time, or place.
Bueno, es el mayor símbolo del ser humano.
Hands are the greatest symbol of a human being because they imply creativity. Everything has been made by the hands since the beginning of humankind. You are writing. The gentleman over there is operating the camera with his hands. Everything is hands.
Kingman's works have transcended the borders of Ecuador. He has, for many, become the champion of the human condition in Latin America.
Creo que es necesario mostrar la realidad.
I believe it is necessary to show reality.
Una expresión que sea
A very Latin American expression,
para que el mundo conozca,
so that the world become familiar with one's concept of the Latin American reality.
He does not limit himself to only happenings in Latin America.
Lo que quiero decirles sí que estoy ampliando la visión.
What I am trying to say is that I am expanding my vision
Sino mundial. Por ejemplo, aquí
to include world affairs. I did a painting depicting the hope for the end of nuclear experimentation.
los experimentos nucleares.
Through his skills as a painter, Kingman has been able to affect the Latin American art world tremendously. He has also become Ecuador's goodwill ambassador to the world. Currently, an exhibit of Kingman's works are touring the United States, and because of this, many North American artists will be affected by his works. One artist he has already affected is Holly Van Meter, an artist from Winchester, Kentucky. Miss Van Meter was a part of a cultural exchange program that went to Ecuador in the spring of 1989. It was while she was there that she first met Eduardo Kingman.
Well, the day I met Kingman, I had met two other artists in the area, and the last one I was supposed to meet was Kingman, and I almost missed it, which would have been a disaster, but I wasn't at the hotel at the right time I was supposed to be, and Rankin was waiting for me, and when I walked in, he said, "We're going to see Kingman," so we proceeded. And my very first impression was when we got there and got out of the car, his front door, the front door to his house. There was something, I mean, I was really fascinated just by seeing his house and the way it looked and the front door, and somehow I knew something special was about to happen just because of the setting. And when I went inside the house, just the house itself, everywhere you look, there's creativity. There are art objects. It's almost like being in a museum. Everything he has says something, I'm sure, about the man and his life and what he has done. And of course his paintings were everywhere, and I got to see them hanging in their natural environment. And I know there was one tiny little painting that Rankin and I both zeroed in on, and Rankin actually wanted to buy it, and it turned out it was something he had done, I think he said, when he was 17 years old, and it was exquisite. And I thought, gosh, how amazing to see this whole range from when he was just a young man to now. And it was a very powerful experience for me, just to meet the man.
The works that are currently touring the country are the first of Kingman's to appear here since 1974, with the first showing at Lexington, Kentucky's Public Library. The tour is part of a Partners of the Americas Cultural Exchange program.
And the only thing I can say is thank you. Thanks to Lexington, the beautiful people, the wonderful hospitality, and I'm very, very pleased to be here and to show a part of my work.
A part of your beauty.
Well, I think Partners of the Americas has taken the lead in bringing international art into several areas, especially Kentucky. This is actually the very first time, in my opinion, that we've got anybody of the international world-class art background of Mr. Kingman to come to Kentucky to exhibit. And this is only one of many projects that we have planned for the future, and we're hoping that we can showcase what Kentucky can do with world-class art, and we're hoping that after Mr. Kingman's exhibition that we can contact other people who are interested to exhibit in Kentucky and know that we can do it on a first-class scale.
And me, it's kind of a double honor for me to come with Mr. Kingman and his family to be here, up to the point that Mr. Kingman and we were thinking to stay illegal here in Kentucky.
Well, first of all, Mr. Eduardo Kingman is recognized certainly as Ecuador's preeminent contemporary artist. Some say probably Central America's leading contemporary artist. Some even go farther and say possibly even the leading artist in the Third World. And when you bring a person in with that type of recognition, it's not like trying to introduce an artist, if you will. This is someone who's been recognized from Paris to Moscow and all over the world. We're very fortunate to have him here, his exhibition in Central Kentucky. So I've found, as representing this country, traveling around the world, sometimes those of us that are put in high places of responsibility overlook some of the things that are very meaningful. The human touch, a smile, the work of artists like Mr. Kingman. Those things have ways of breaking through where sometimes the leaders and negotiators are just can't get beyond the impasse. I also want to thank Dr. Rankin Skinner for making this possible under the auspices of Partners of Americas.
The remarkable thing about Eduardo Kingman is the genuine humility that he exudes. He has been honored many times by prominent officials, and his paintings have been lauded throughout the world. Eduardo Kingman is perhaps the best-known contemporary painter in Ecuador, and is certainly one of Latin America's greatest living artists. Kingman has blazed new trails in theme and style that other Latin American artists have followed. Perhaps the greatest contribution of his paintings is the artist's discovery of the intimate world of his heroes. He is recognized throughout the world as peerless in the expression of the hands. And that distant past is chronicled today by the master Eduardo Kingman. It is therefore of great interest to entertain the possibility of finding ourselves upon the works of one of the great painters of the Americas. But for those who have met him, it is easy to see how this man is capable of so much compassion in his work.
He's a very humble man. He's a very warm he's got a terrific sense of humor. I really enjoyed just, he's a real person, and yet he's probably a master. Like they said on some of the literature, that he's one of the last living masters.
Mr. Kingman is absolutely probably one of the most powerful painters that's alive in the world today. If you look at his paintings, it's hard to look at his paintings without feeling some emotion. You can feel the pain in some of the paintings that you see, and yet on the other hand, there's lots of bright, vivid colors that exudes hope. So even though there may be a slight bit of despair in what he paints, maybe in a homeless person, for instance, the bright colors exudes that hope for a better future.
Well, the vivid colors and the depth of his work, I think, are very outstanding. And the warmth, I think, comes through of Mr. Kingman's feelings, I think, are very easy to identify with. And the colors are just outstanding, and I want to encourage the people who have an opportunity to visit this exhibition to do so while it's here.